All right, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how I'm using this primary arm M8, what gun I have it on, some of the cool things that I have been doing with it. Okay, so um, what I have here is the primary arms M8 on top of the Ruger MPR. Okay, so we got a $1,500 scope on a $640 rifle. Okay, so it seems like, is that even fair? I mean, why do I have such an expensive scope on a relatively inexpensive rifle? Well, here's the thing. This Ruger MPR, it's got an 18-inch cold hammer forged barrel. It came with a two-stage trigger. This thing repeatedly shoots 1-inch groups and better at 100 yards. I've had this down to like 0.75. Okay. Um, so here's the thing: AR technology. I mean, this is AR-15s were like developed back in like the mid 1950s. Okay, um, maybe, and they've gradually improved. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, this would have been a $2,000-3,000 rifle. Okay, at this point, you can get a really good AR that shoots, 1-inch groups for $500-600. Okay, uh, but the scopes, on the other hand, they're continually improving. Okay, so what we have here is like two different generations of technology. This is a much newer technology versus the rifle. Okay, so for that reason, don't be surprised if you're putting a really, if you're going forward, if you're putting more and more expensive scopes on cheaper and cheaper ARs. If the rifle is shooting 1 inch at 100 yards, you got yourself a good rifle. Okay. Now, some people might say, hey, but I want a half inch, one that shoots a half inch. Well, here's the thing. Yes, you might be able to shoot that a half inch better at 100 yards, but the reality is when you're shooting 5, 6, 700 yards, okay, um, that half inch is not really what's going to make the difference of whether you're going to hit your target or not hit your target. What's going to make the difference is being able to judge your distance, and most importantly, your wind holds, being able to use accurate wind holds. That's what's going to make the biggest difference if you're going to hit your target at 600 and 700 yards. Not if your rifle is shooting a half inch better, or if it's shooting, like, say, a 0.5 MOA versus a 1 MOA at 100 yards. Okay, so at distance, that's the thing that's going to matter the most. Are you able to adjust for the wind well? Okay, so that's the reason why I've got a $1,500 scope on a $600 rifle. Okay, so going beyond that, another way, aside from distance shooting, one of the things that I do with these ARs is I do a lot of like CQB type of training. Right, I like to shoot targets up close, shooting and moving. You can't shoot steel up close with 5.56. So what I use is I use 22. Basically, I put in a 22 conversion bolt, which allows me to shoot the steel targets pretty close. Okay, and yeah, sometimes I will get splashback. I've been hit with 22s bouncing back, but you know what? They barely break the skin. You can't do that with a 5.56. You're gonna get hurt. Okay, so this scope really allows me to do that because I can put in the 22 conversion bolt. The scope itself is zeroed with a 77 grain bullet at 100 yards. But when I put in the 22 conversion bolt, I have already figured out that I have to go 4 mils up. Okay, go to the 4 mils up, and now my 22 has a zero at 100 yards. Okay, so now the way that works out is it's also when you put a 22 in there, my first zero is at 20 yards, and then my second zero is at 100 yards. Okay, so this scope with these dials over here allows me that benefit of being able to go back and forth between 4 mils for my 22s, and if I go back to zero, okay, I now have a zero for 77 grain 5.56 at 100 yards. What I haven't figured out yet is if I'm using a 55 grain, because I've been working with this only for about 4 days so far, with a 55 grain, where that's going to be. Maybe I got to go a half mil up or whatever, but I'm going to figure that out so that so I can dial in my bullet, the calibers that I'm using, and also the weight bullets. So that's a good way to use the dials on this scope, and it's a big advantage. Now, I was shooting this rifle with this scope with the 22s. I was shooting the 22s at 200 yards. 16. My target was 12 inches wide, 16 inches tall, and I got, I think, 25 out of 25 hits. Now the way I did that is when I dialed this up to the 4. When I dial this up to the 4, because the 4 mils up is going to give me a 0 at 100 yards. So the 22 is going to continue to drop past that. So so far I've figured out that at 130 yards, I have to use, when I'm looking in my reticle, right? Because now I'm using the reticle for my holdovers. So it's the 4.5 or 450 yard mark in the reticle. Okay, so with the 22, if I'm shooting at 200 yards, at 130 yards, I go right there, the 4.5. Now at 200 yards, I go to 6.5, the 650 yard mark, and I was able to get 25 out of 25 hits on a 16-inch by 12-inch target. Okay, and the great thing is I can keep, I can use the holes to hit my target with the 22s all the way out there. And then, now here's the important thing. If you, when you dial this in for your 22s, before you even change your 22 conversion bolt, okay, that's the CMMG 22 conversion bolt, before you remove the bolt, dial this down to 0. Dial this down first before you take the bolt out of there, because if you put a 5.56 bolt in there, and then you forget to dial this down, you can dangerously overshoot your target, right? Because depending on how tall your backstop is, you might shoot well over your target. Okay, so that's why one of the things I've learned is, in order to make sure that I dial this down, first dial it down to your 5.560, then switch out your 22 conversion bolt. Okay, having a 22 conversion bolt is an excellent training tool. Because here's the thing. I mean, I shoot every day. Okay, I shoot every day, almost all day. Now with the 5.56, I will typically shoot a few hundred rounds a week. But with the 22s, I can shoot thousands of rounds a week. I buy them like 10,000 rounds at a time because they're cheap. So with the 22s, you can really practice your CQB stuff, your moving and shooting at steel targets fairly close. You can also practice your distance shooting. Okay, when you're shooting at distance with the 22s, the 22 is going to be very sensitive to the wind. Right, so all the stuff that because remember at 200 yards, I'm using the 6.5 hold over here. So that's like the equivalent of shooting a 5.56 at 650 yards. So, and the wind holds, right, for the wind is going to be the same. If you got a 5-mile-per-hour wind or 10, you're going to use the same hold. So one of the great things about using the 22 conversion bolt is it allows you to practice the things on this reticle. You can practice using this reticle on a 200-yard range, right? So that when you get out to the 600 and 700-yard range, you've already practiced using this reticle. You've already practiced using the wind holds. So that's why I say that this scope is so far has met all my needs. And I have lots of needs, right? I went through a whole list of all the different things that I do. Every other scope that I had before this fell short. I wasn't able to do all these things. I certainly wasn't able to adjust the turrets as I switched from, let's say, 5.56 to 22. And the reason was because the clicks weren't as audible. So if I tried to dial up, because from here I can go up to 4 mils, and I can see the number, and I can feel the clicks, and I know I'm not going to accidentally overshoot that. And I can go all the way back to 0, and I know I'm going to go exactly there, and I know I'm not going to overshoot that or end up someplace different. So this is not something I could do with my earlier versions of these primary arm scopes. Now, one of the things that I've done repeatedly, I've done this at least 6 times, I think, so far, is I go back and forth between shooting the 22s and the 5.56. So what I did is I shot the 22s. I'm shooting them at the 200 yards. I dial back down, right, and I'll shoot. Actually, I'll shoot the 77 grain Sierra Match King. Bring out the Sierra. So after I dial down, I shoot this and confirm that, hey, I'm back on 0 over here, right? So it's tracking, it's repeatable, 1 inch group. Then I'll go now. I shot the 22s again. You know, dialed up to the 4 mils to give me my my 0 on the 22s at 100 yards. Did my shooting, then dialed back down, shot this again. And the interesting thing about this is you can see the paper's a little bit wet. When I did this yesterday, it started like, as soon as I set up, it started a downpour. Okay, so I actually shot this like in the rain while it was coming down hard. And under that type of stress, because here's the thing, I had all my equipment out. I'm like, I had all my guns getting wet. I'm like, I need to shoot this stuff as fast as possible and get, get my things, because it's not that everything is waterproof, more or less, all the equipment. But the thing is, like for example, I had this board out as I was collecting notes. Well, I didn't want the notes to get like washed off of this, right? So I had my papers out, so I didn't want my papers to get wet. So even though the equipment's waterproof, the papers and other stuff I had out, I didn't want that to get wet. So I was kind of rushing through the shots. Paper got wet over here, and look at that, 1 inch group. And this is going back and forth between shooting 22s, adjusting for 22s, adjusting for 5.56, and those bullets are coming in perfect. The only thing I got to figure out is what my 55 grain bullet adjustment is, because when I did shoot the 55 grains, I saw that they went about 3 inches high. So I got to figure out where I got to dial to bring those down to a perfect 0. So this is awesome. I'm absolutely loving this scope. Worth the $1,500. I mean, I might end up buying another one. But here's the thing. One of the things that I was thinking, and I was thinking about this like a month ago, I was thinking to myself, $1,500, it would be good if they made like a second focal plane version of this that was cheaper. That's what I had in my mind, and lo and behold, they've already done it. It's called the S10, and I've already got it, and I already received it, and in a couple of days I'm going to start reviewing that. But the S10 has a lot of the information in the reticle that this scope has. You're able to do a lot of the same things that you can with this, but it only costs like $440 or $450, something like that. So look for that review coming up soon. I'm going to start working with that, but I absolutely love this scope. Like I said, my only 2 kind of complaints, I think they should have included the folding lever. I think they should have threw that in. I think they also should give you 2 exposed turrets on this. And what else can I say? I really don't have anything else I could say to improve this. Down the road, they may want to figure out a way to illuminate the posts, the duplex posts. Want to figure out a way to illuminate those as well. It'll make it even faster at shooting close distances. What else can we say? Mount. What else? Now we're just nitpicking. We're looking for things that they can make better. The mount, I think the lighter version of this, I think, is insanely expensive. I'm hoping at some point that gets a little bit cheaper, and maybe I'll upgrade to that. They have, like I said, they have one that's 2 ounces lighter, I think, or 3 ounces lighter, but it costs like $250. So for now, I'm just going to stick with this one. It seems to be working fine for me. The other thing I look forward to getting from Primary Arm is the Pegasus magnifier, which is pretty cool because you got a magnifier that has range estimating built into the magnifier, which is cool because now you can use that with any red dot that you own. You just put it behind anyone, you have instant range. You're able to range estimate. The only thing that's holding me back is that the mount that you buy with it is not a quick release, quick reattach. And I've really gotten used to the ones where you take them on, take them off, really fast. So that's the thing that's kind of making me hold back on that. So anyway, really great stuff coming, that we have here from Primary Arms. And I gotta give Primary Arms a lot of credit. I mean, they are. I mean, I think they're really trying to dominate this market, because they are like releasing scopes like one after the other, and it's like people, some people like scopes like this that have lots of information. For some people, it might be a little overwhelming, so they might be like, I don't want all that information. Well, they've got that too. Personally, I'd rather have more information because you can grow into it. But I think Primary Arms is doing a great job of putting out lots of new product, and I seriously think that the way they're going, they're gonna dominate this, the LPVO market. So thanks for watching. Drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and we will talk again soon. All right, we're gonna be shooting 22 long rifle out of this Ruger MPR with a 22 conversion bolt at 200 yards using this Primary Arms M8 scope. So nice thing about this is right now this is zeroed in for a 77 grain 5.56 at 100 yards. So I'm just gonna dial this up to 4 mils, which is now gonna give me a 22-0 at 100 yards. So shooting at 200 yards, my holdover is gonna be using the 650 yard mark. Okay, so I'm going to zoom you guys in so you can see the target. You're probably not going to see it get hit with the 22s. It's not going to move that much, but you'll be able to hear the dings. I'm going to be using my electronic ears so I can hear the dings. The last time I shot this, I did 25 out of 25. Okay. One of the things that's worth also mentioning, if you ordered this scope, they did accidentally send me the wrong reticle instructions. So instead of sending me the instructions for the M8 Raptor in yards, they sent me the instructions for I think the Griffin in meters. Okay, and at first it was a little confusing as I was looking through it, trying to figure out what it was telling me. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. Make sure you guys get the right instructions. I already sent in an email request asking Primary Arms to send me the right instructions. Luckily, I've been researching this already a month in advance, so I more or less already knew how to use the scope. So let me dial you guys out. I just wanted to throw that out there in case you buy this, you get the wrong instructions, and like you're all confused. You know what's going on. Okay, make sure that your instructions and your scope match up. Let me zoom you out. All right, we're going to go 10 magnification, 200 yards. You see where that green barrel is? Well, if you follow that straight up, you're going to see a white square towards the top of the screen. That's what we're shooting at. That's 12 inches wide by 16 inches tall. All right, and you're listening for the dings. See how many hits I can get on this. I'm just shooting off the bipod. I don't have this bagged or anything. But when it's bagged, it tends to be a little bit more accurate. So the 605 mark. Hit. I think we got a little wind. I'm not getting see what the wind ribbons are showing me. Up here, I'm not seeing any wind. I think they're impacting a little bit to the left. That's why I got some misses in the beginning. Nope, didn't get as many hits today. Last time I did this, I got 25 out of 25. Today, it looks like I'm only getting 50% hits. I'm just using a bulk ammo. This is a Federal Auto Match Walmart, bulk 22. Do another 25 rounds. See if we can get some hits like this. All right, with the second time around, I think I got maybe 2 or 3 misses, but they were almost all hits the second time around. I don't know what happened the first time. Maybe there was some wind downrange that was moving my bullets that I couldn't tell. Go back to one mag. Okay, so yeah, so basically I got my wind ribbons over here. Up here they're showing me that there's no wind. Because I'm shooting through such a narrow column, I do have ribbons downrange, but they're kind of off to the side, a little bit out of my view. Basically, they're being hidden by the trees, so I couldn't tell with the first magazine that I did if I had wind downrange, and I did get, I think I only got about 50% hits. But with the second magazine I did, I got, I think it wasn't 100% hits, but it was like maybe 95% hits. So that's at 200 yards with bulk 22, right? Federal Auto Match from Walmart. And this scope really makes it a pleasure to shoot this, to go back and forth between shooting the, shooting 22s, and going back to 5.56. Because now if I want to go back to 5.56, I just dial this back to 0. And now I'm zeroed in for 5.56. And this scope makes it possible to easily do that. On my other primary arm scopes, other scopes that I have, it's, basically I don't have confidence in the turrets, right, to know that if I dial up, that I'm going to be able to dial back down and get to that exact same spot. So with this scope I have lots of confidence that I can go up and down and always end up back in the right spot. So that's one of the great features about this scope. The way I did it in my other scopes, like my other primary arms ACSS scopes, I would just use the holdovers, right? So I would know at 100 yards, my holdover I think was the 400-yard mark at 100 yards. So at 200 yards, I think I would have to like hold the 800 like towards the top of the target. I had to hold it slightly above it. So I mean, I could do it, but it just, it wasn't as easy. With this, I know that I know exactly where I'm at. I know that the 650 is gonna get me exactly. The 660 is gonna put me exactly on my target. And the great thing is, I can also use the wind holds, right? Because because of the way I've set this up, where now I have a true zero at 100 yards with the 22s. If I've got a wind, right, and I can see my wind ribbons, let's say moving one side or the other, I can use the wind dots to hold. So that's I haven't had a chance to play around with that, but that's definitely something that I plan to, do on days that are windy. I'm gonna take you guys downrange. I'll show you what we did down there on the targets, because I had just freshly painted it before I did the shooting. Yeah, we're moving downrange towards the target. I can see that there's wind down here. There was no wind back up there where we were in the trees, because I guess the trees were shielding us a little bit more. But down here we got wind. That's why that first time around, I only got 50% hits. All right, I'm at the target that we were shooting at 200 yards. You see, there's a nice cluster towards the center there. Surprisingly, a lot of the hits were more towards the top half of this. The last time I shot it seemed like they were more dead center. So I'm not sure what changed there. It might be that when I dialed up and down, maybe this time I didn't, because sometimes it's kind of hard to know if you're like exactly at the 4. Maybe I went one click past it, and that's why I came up a little bit higher. That's something you gotta be careful of. But anyway, I mean, even with that, I mean, look, at 200 yards, you know, with the 22 long rifle, I'm pretty satisfied with this. And here's the thing, I mean, this is a location that I shoot every day, but it only goes out to 200 yards. So if I shoot this with a 5.56, there's really no challenge. I mean, with the 5.56 and that Ruger MPR, I mean, I'll get 2 inches or better. All right, the wind's not going to affect it. When you throw in the 22 conversion bolt and you start shooting 22s at 200 yards, now that becomes a little bit more interesting. It becomes a little bit more challenging. You get to use your wind dots. Gives you a chance to practice your wind holds. So that 22 conversion bolt is a great tool to really practice using your reticle. Let's do a little bit more shooting. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna practice a little CQB work with this 22 conversion bolt. The nice thing about 22s is you can shoot steel plates up close. I wouldn't want to be shooting steel this close with 5.56. You might get a piece of metal back in your face. So 22 conversion bolt's a great training tool. So this really gives you a chance to practice working with that gun in that 1x power, especially when you start moving and shooting. That's when you can fully realize the benefits of both those posts that come in from the side to guide you to the center, and being able to keep the illuminated reticle on all the time, so that you can see it easier. Today's a bright day, so these two things working together really help you. You really can't use the illuminated reticle unless you have the auto off, auto on, because you're just going to keep running down the battery. So, fun thing. Let's do one more thing. So another thing I've been practicing is just shooting freestanding at 75 yards in 3 power, right? Because if you're at, let's say, 10 yards, you're going to be in 1 power, so the gun functions kind of like a red dot. If you're at 100 yards plus, you're going to zoom all the way up to 8 power, and you're going to get yourself either prone or kneeling, or just brace yourself on something. But 50 to 75 yards, that's like a position that you would shoot standing, where you gotta return fire quickly. So that's something that I practice. Just shoot, hold the gun up like this, and just making those shots at 3 power. Okay, so that's a distance where, let's say, you might be tracking something, right? Where you might have somebody that's moving, or you need that wider field of view, so you can maybe track multiple targets. So I find in that 50 to 75 yards, the 3 power really works great. And the first focal plane feature of the scope, it allows that reticle to get just a little bit bigger, so you can see it just a little bit easier. So, fun scope, man. Fun scope, fun gun. Throw in that 22 conversion bolt, and it's going to really open up your training options. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video review that I did on this Primary Arms M8 Raptor. It is my favorite scope. I have a lot of them, but I'm absolutely loving this one. And this was a $1,500 scope, so this is expensive. But I got another one that I've already received. It's called the S10, which seems to be kind of like a cheaper version of this. It has a lot of the features that this scope has, but instead of it being $1,500, it's I think like $450. So I'm going to start working with that scope in the next few days, and I'll try and get a review out on that next week. So hope you guys enjoyed the videos. I'll talk to you all soon.